ओम स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयोः श्रित्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः। नमः श्री यतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे। 18th was Dol Purnima. So on that note, we shall try to discuss the life and message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, an extraordinary personality whom many call as incarnation of God and who really revolutionized the very concept of bhakti, and probably taking the name of the Lord, Nam Sankirtan, he gave a new dimension to it. Just as Thakur made intense prarthana with Vyakulata as a very potent means of reaching the God or the ultimate, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu really propounded the concept of Nam Sankirtan in groups. Of course, every method, every approach benefits many, it doesn't benefit some. People understand it wrongly, all that happened. But generally, he did something very extraordinary. Just as the Holy Mother used to say, there is no caste for devotees. She would make everyone sit together and eat. She would never encourage anyone to ask about anybody's caste. The one young widow used to come to Mother. She was so devoted. So Radhu and many others were very keen to know her caste. But Mother strictly told her. Mother knew everything. That lady never confessed. But Mother knew everything about her. But he said, no, don't ask her. She is your Didi. That much. So in the same way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, through this Sankirtan, he brought everything together. Deen, Dukhi, Dalit, the downtrodden, the low people from lower caste, the rich, the poor, everything, all of them were brought together by his extraordinary appeal and attraction. And their love for this Nam Sankirtan brought them all together. So much so, that its effect is felt even now in Bengal. Bengal is perhaps the only state in India, among the largest states, where there is no idea of caste. People, I often used to wonder how amazing it is. Even now, if you go down south or in some of the northern Indian states like Bihar or Uttar Pradesh, a terrible custom even now. But in Bengal, absolutely this idea is totally absent. See, people clearly write to which caste they belong. Goswami, Bhattacharya, Ghosh, then any other, Datta, whatever it is. But no one mistakes. People from other castes will clearly call people from Brahmin caste for do puja, etc. But there's no question of high or low. Exactly, very much like the original idea of caste, which was propounded mainly as a means of convenience in social life. People assigned different duties, different works, depending upon their propensity or their drift or nature. So there was no question of high or low. Each one in the society, everyone has to perform his or her duty. So there was no question of high or low. Amazingly, even now you'll find in Bengal, people clearly revere their caste, but there's nothing like, no one is looked down upon that you belong to the lower caste or this or that. There is respect. At the same time, there is no demeaning attitude that way. So that's why, he made, of course, more than all that, he created an extraordinary system whereby, people taking the name of the Lord this way, he could reach very high states of devotion. So today we shall see how far. I do not know in one class whether we will be able to complete it. In case we miss it, we may take it the week after, because next week we have again a talk by Swami Sarvapriyanji and Vedanta. So only the week after we'll be able to continue this. So he was born on the 4th of February 1486. So he lived only 47 years. In the year 1533, he gave up his body. He was born as the son of Jagannath Mishra, a learned Pandit, and his mother's name was Sachidevi. He was born at Mayapur. This is situated in the bank of Ganga. Navadvip was a very prosperous town. It is a center of trade and equally of learning. Particularly, the Navya Nyaya, a new system of logic, was very famous there, which at its birth in Mithila had been introduced to Navadvip, and it was developed by a succession of great uh, he was born in Mayapur in the township of Navadvip, as I said. And then this had become very famous, and many Pandits, they used to indulge, they developed this Navyanaya, and the town had become very famous. But then obviously, when too much of this logic, etc., it takes people away from the real pursuit of the highest goal of life. There are mere rituals and intellectualism. Devotion to God, which is the essential teaching of the Vaishnava scriptures, found no place in their lives. So, deeply saddened by all that, Advaita Acharya, a genuine Vaishnava devotee, prayed to the Lord Krishna, unless you yourself incarnate again, these creatures will never get any redemption, these creatures. So it is said that in response to his prayers, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born on earth. So Chaitanya was the 10th child to be born. 8 daughters and a boy had preceded him. All the 8 daughters died in infancy, and while the boy Vishweshwara, he left home and hearth at the tender age of 16 to take the life of a wandering writer monk. So this new boy was given the name Vishwambhara by his father, considering his horoscope, etc. And his mother, Shachdevi, used to call him Nimai, meaning short-lived. Moreover, in Bengal, it's always a custom of giving very strange names. They say Panchkodi, this, all that, such strange names, so that no drishti is not attracted, no one casts an evil eye. And then here Nimai, meaning that bitter taste of fruit, and leaves of neem. So such an undesirable association with the name would avert possible dangers or evil influences. So he used to call him Nimai. Of course, his name was changed into Gauranga at the time of investiture with the sacred thread because of the glow and the extraordinary aura surrounding his personality. And again, it became Sri Krishna Chaitanya, who awakens God in the hearts of men by his spiritual teacher Keshav Bharati, who initiated him into sannyasa. Obviously, these extraordinary manifestations, even at a very young age, they exhibit such great qualities. He was so attractive, and then all the village mothers and others would often take him on their hands, and then no one would like to leave him, etc., etc. There are many such incidents are mentioned in his life. Once since he was beautifully decked with many ornaments, a thief wanted to take him. He carried away the boy, but then he could never find his way, and finally he landed back at the Nimai's house itself. And these many such incidents are reported in his life. And then, his of course, his complexion was like a brilliant molten gold, and many supernatural phenomena were manifesting in the boy's body. While sleeping, a moon-like aura was sometimes found floating over him. In his bedroom, many luminous figures appeared before his mother. Of course, we also hear this, I've heard about this from the mother Chandramani Devi, she used to see such luminous figures, etc. So, his, both his parents used to hear the sound of anklet worn by children as Nimai was walking. This was interpreted as indication of the presence of Gopala. As he grew up, obviously, uh, like a little boy, Krishna, he also used to indulge in many pranks. He was quite restless, and he took liberties with others by stealing foodstuff and eating and all that. So, of course, even at that young age, he was seen sometimes dancing with his hands uplifted, a very famous pose associated with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So there were many Orthodox Brahmins and others who observed strict caste rules. His mother was also like very Orthodox, but but he would always tell her the idea of external purity is a delusion. So if mother took a rod in her hand to punish him, he would go to such places, unclean places where she would not dare to go. Much worse, he would touch a chamar, an untouchable, and threaten to pollute mother by touching her. This would make Sachi has to run indoors. I mean, very similar we see in Swamiji's life, how he used to do in this. See, these are all quite common in the lives of extraordinary personalities. They add beauty and luminosity to such lives. And then Nimai, once she was, somebody as you said, some supernatural powers were possessing him, evil spirits. So they said to make offerings to goddess Shashti, and he will be protected. She prepared all the offerings, but Nimai suddenly appeared and demanded, I want all that. And he snatched it away and went. So when he was naturally, such things worry the parents. When he was 5, he began to cry one day in utter distraction. Nothing would pacify him. Then he says, the offerings which Jagdish and Hiranya have made, prepared for God, I want them. Everybody was shocked like that. You make such demands, and then nobody could understand. Of course, they all knew that he was very, very extraordinary. So when he was just 7 years old, his elder brother Vishweshwar just left his hearth and home, leaving his parents in great sorrow. And then this brought such an amount of seriousness in Nitai. He refused to attend any taller Sanskrit school till then. Now he began to study, and in a short time made very rapid progress, as he was a person with extraordinary memory powers. He was a Shrutidhar. One could grasp and remember by hearing once. So, his father himself is a great Vedic Pandit, but he passed away very soon, and then Mother Sachi was now the only sole guardian of Nimai. So, she ensured that he got the best education from Pandit Gangadas, was a very person of impeccable character and unrivaled scholarship. So, naturally, he was busy in studying, and then what happened, he was such a great this thing. He also went to study under the very reputed scholar Vasudeva Sarvabhauma. So naturally, he excelled all his fellow students, including one Raghunatha, who had already written a very authoritative text on Nyaya called Didhiti. Sarvabhauma asked his person to analyze a very naughty logical fallacy. It took him a whole day to give the answer, whereas Nimai did it in minutes. So one day, they were Raghunatha came to know that Nimai was writing a book on Nyaya. As Impulse was writing one, he thought that obviously if Nimai's work comes, then his work would pale into insignificance. So while both of them were crossing the river in a boat, Raghunatha wanted to get some pages of Nimai's book. As he read it, Raghunath's face became very morose and he burst into tears because the feeling that his ambition would be defeated utterly. To pacify and gladden his friend, Nimai, without hesitation, threw the whole manuscript into Ganga. So, of course, the world lost a masterpiece of Nyaya but got a wonderful person in exchange, in compensation. So soon he started to all the school of his own. It became very popular. And meanwhile, he married Lakshmi, a very pious lady. And then he was at the time very full of fun and frolic, etc. So he used to tease even Vaishnavas. A person named Mukunda was trying to avoid Nimai for this reason. And somehow he confronted him once. You are trying to avoid me. In time, I too shall become a Vaishnava, but not a humbug like you. And then Srivas, one of his father's friends, asked him to join the Vaishnavas and lead them by leading an exemplary life. But Nimai said, right now I'm a Pandit. Let me enjoy my Panditya for some time. Later on, I will see. So, at this time, around this sometime, one Tapan Mishra, a very elderly Brahmana devotee, he was practically the first person. He came to Nimai, fell at his feet, saying that the divine voice had asked him to seek refuge in Nimai Pandit, was none other than the Lord manifest. So perhaps Tapan Mishra was the first to recognize Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Very similar to the Chinu Shakar recognizing Thakur as an incarnation. You see, all these are all, shrouded in that kind of a mystical mystery, and they happen in the lives of all extraordinary personalities. Only the incidents are different, but the basic texture and the context are quite often same. Meanwhile, suddenly his wife Lakshmi died of snake bite. He continued teaching, but then he was slowly losing interest in all that. Of course, he defeated many others in arguments, etc. Then once he undertook a pilgrimage to Gaya, as was worshipping at the Vishnu Pada, strange mood working. He almost fell into a trance. He was about to fall down, and from behind he was supported by Ishwarapuri, a disciple of Madhavendra Puri, who was a great ascetic. So he was a celebrated personage, is Madhavendra Puri. He was the one who inducted the practice of bhakti among sannyasins. Sannyasins are supposed to be Advaitins, full of jnana, and they don't practice bhakti and all that. But this Madhavendra Puri somehow introduced a system of bhakti amongst the sannyasins. So Nimai, when he came to normal consciousness, requested this Ishwar Puri to help him realize a glimpse of Radha's love for Sri Krishna. So Mother Ishwarapuri initiated him into a mantra for Krishna worship, and then he was the worship of Krishna, the beloved of gopis. Immediately, Nimai was transformed. His jovial mood disappeared, and he became, instead of that, it became one of inexpressible sorrow because, longing over Krishna, repeated surges of longing, followed by a sense of calm fulfillment, tossed his soul from sorrow to ecstasy. And then, he longed to go to Vrindavan and somehow to meet Sri Krishna there. He was persuaded to go back to see his mother, and then he came back. So, his old days of mirth and fun and frolic were gone, and he would speak nothing but Sri Krishna. So, I had to note one devotee by name Shuklambar. He fell down taking the name of Krishna. And then when he regained his consciousness, he touched his heart and said, I have captured my Krishna, but he has fled. There's a void in the heart, and the whole world cannot fulfill it. Fill it. So then, it's all um, happening in when this former teacher Gangadas asked him to open his stall. He did, but could not teach as before because the when he opened his book uttering Hari, he fell into a trance, and then he tried to take the classes, but only Krishna and not on the subject of study. And then simply they could not do anything. Simply you would again start this Krishna Kirtana and then dancing and all that would follow. So thus his intellectual life completely came to a grinding halt. But then, slowly it was the beginning or the slow birth of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the apostle of Krishna Prema. So they were abnormal moods of frenzy. He developed religious ecstasy often, behaved like one mad. He laughed, wept, and so on. Incessantly shouted Krishna's name, climbed up trees, and all that. The eight expressions of the intense love of God namely, the weeping, laughter, shivering, sweating, horripilation, fainting, they all began to manifest. Profuse sweating was followed by dryness and heat in the body. All that happened. Then many pundits, they were spreading the scandal that Nimai had become mad, but the two followers knew. One of them was Advaita Acharya, who really prayed to the Lord for his advent on earth. So he said that he had been revealed in a dream by Sri Krishna that I myself have come to teach the way of salvation to men. Your prayers have been answered. So when he opened his eyes, actually, he saw Nimai standing before him. Another person was a very devoted lady, Srivas. So there's a many incident. One of those Srivas was performing worship in his home shrine. A knock was heard at his door, and someone said, "He whom you are worshipping, you are trying to commune with, I have come." When he opened, he saw Nimai standing there. So Srivas was standing, speechless. He gave the order, "Fetch water. I want to bathe." When he moved to the bathing room, they saw a figure of gold lit with a million lightning flashes, etc. So, he went back to the worship room. People began to hear the entrancing sound of the flute. He brought heaps of flowers, sandal paste, and offerings. Everything was being offered. Then he said, "He who sits in the hearts of all men, I have revealed myself to tell you that you have nothing to fear from the Muslim king." Because people have complained to Qazi, his minister, about the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and this Nimai and the Kirtan, etc. that is happening. So he says, "I have come to teach creatures how to attain me by bhakti and prema. Then I shall show you how to change the heart of the king." Then nearby a small girl by name Narayani was standing. He touched her, immediately she fell into a trance. He said, "This is how I will transform the king." And then when he came back to normal consciousness, he was very remorse. He said, began to pray, "O merciful Krishna, save me from all worldly desires, etc." And thus, there were two aspects in him, Nimai the devotee and Nimai the Lord. So all these opened the eyes of several people. It became more confirmed that he was someone really extraordinary. And then slowly the important devotees, disciples started gathering around him. One of the earliest to come was Nityananda. He had, some say that he himself was Vishwarupa's elder brother. Anyway, that is not very confirmed. Then gone, finally he met Vrindavan. At Vrindavan, he met Ishwar Puri, who advised him that if his object was to attain uh, or see Krishna, he should go to Nadia. Nima already had a foreknowledge that a great being was identical with Balaram was coming to meet him. He gave out the name of the expected person as Nitai. After some search in Nadia, he was found out. They all met. Again, they two met as old friends. Nitai suddenly had a vision of Gauranga with 6 arms in that meeting. In the first pair, there was bow and arrow. Then second had a flute as Krishna, and the third, Danda and Kamandal as a sannyasi. So, he was taken in that sense, he said as Rama, Krishna, and also sannyasi, a combination. Shatabuja, the six arm vision is very famous. And then he fell into a trance. And then all your wishes will be fulfilled. You shall carry with you the fountain of bhakti and prema. Nitai always followed Nimai as a shadow. And of course, Advaita Acharya also followed him. Although the Lord had given him indication about his own advent, etc., he was not very, he was a little skeptical, but slowly he changed. Then, but the greatest of them was one Muslim by name Haridas. He was so deeply attracted, but then Qazi, the Muslim ruler's agent, condemned him to the Quranic punishment that he should be lashed in all public places till death. So they took him to several places and he was whipped and whipped, lashed. But he was only in joy and ecstasy. Nothing could touch him. Finally, the soldiers guards threw him, thinking that in the river, thinking that he was dead. But then that cool touch of the waters revived him, and he came to the shore. So slowly, these incidents also obviously in the mind of Kashi also they made some impression. So Nimai often, he would there was a great changing moods in him. Sometimes he would, he would be seated himself in the seat of Vishnu himself, with devotees surrounding him. The whole room was lighted by the effulgence emanating from his body, and then people felt that they were face to face with the Lord of the universe. Then again, soon, he will come back to the normal consciousness. One day in that Shiva's house, Aarti was being performed. Then they sent word to his mother, Shachi Devi, to come, but accept him not as a son, but as a Lord of all. Then the old lady bowed to him, and then he planted his feet on her head. Immediately she fell into a trance and began to dance. Although she was ignorant of Sanskrit, she started chanting from Bhagavata Purana. So then, like that, he called many devotees, blessed them. Haridas also, he said that because of his devotion, he could stand all that. The manifesting Lord as Almighty lasted some days, that day in the Shiva's house, lasted the whole night, almost till the night 12 o'clock. And then experience Bhaktas. We saw what was a true relation between Krishna, Radha, and gopis. In that mood, he could virtually make them understand all these aspects of Sri Krishna. And then the it was but it was kind of too much for them. So they advised him, they again appealed to him to present himself as their old Nimai known to them, so that they can really relate to him. Then he said yes, and with a shake he fell down. This is what is they say it's called Mahaprakasha, the great revelation. Took a long time for him to remain normal consciousness, but then, when a song of Radha's attendance to their mistress was sung, his link with the normal human consciousness was gradually restored. And again, there was, of course, whenever he was there, the great singing of Kirtan as Haribol would happen. So, naturally, Nimai and Nitai they were holding the Kirtans and attracting everybody. People are coming. But then, they said that all over the place, the name of the Lord should be spread. But some of the Orthodox Brahmins, etc., were not coming. But then Nimai and Nitai suggested that uh, Nityananda says to Haridas that if you convert Jaga and Madhai, they were two, I think, they were, they were well known for their rough behavior. They were employed, they were kotwals or police officers of the Muslim ruler. They were confirmed drunkards and rowdies. So Nityananda and Haridas decided that if they could convert these two, all the others would automatically join. So with a big kirtan party, Nityananda and Haridas went, naturally entreated them with the message of bhakti, but naturally they annoyed these scoundrels who were having their rest. So they got angry, they threw big brickbats at Nityananda. Nityananda was bleeding profusely, but still continued with his kirtan. Then now Nimai himself approached, and when they saw him, they felt an irresistible ball of fire was coming towards them. Many say that it was Bhagavan Vishnu's chakra which was coming to annihilate them. When Nityananda somehow pleaded with him not to kill them, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced them. That very touch simply changed into saintly characters. Then they again they begged pardon. They took their seat for days at the bathing ghat, where devotees would come, and in agony they would ask forgiveness from all those who would come. Course of time, by their personal labor, they set up a ghat. That's even now called as Madai Ghat. It is there. Then the conversion of Jagai and Madai that created tremendous furor and then a tremendous uproar, and so many were so much impressed. And again, because the Brahmanas they could not tolerate all that. The Orthodox people they complained to Kazi. He said no, all kirtan should be stopped, and he sent his forces. They would attack the kirtan party. They would go elsewhere and start. So nobody could stop it. It on continued. Finally, Nima himself took a huge party and went to the house of Kazi. First he was afraid to come out, but the moment when he came and he saw, he was so deeply impressed. And when he began to talk in an attitude of humility, addressing him as Lord Gaur, he said that because of the Brahmanas only he did, but he has nothing against the scapeman, etc. He was transformed, tears poured from his eyes, and he prostrated himself before Chaitanya in a humble way. Immediately he gave an order that nobody should disturb the Kirtanas. Similarly, the Advaita Acharya also was transformed. So you see here, the great servants of the Vaishnava school maintained that uh, Chaitanya was Radha and Krishna in one body. Actually, in the Vrindavana episode, Radha tasted the bliss that was Krishna in various forms of love. Krishna now felt that he should enjoy his own bliss as Radha did. So it was to fulfill this in this Chaitanya incarnation, where Radha and Krishna combined in one personality. It could therefore be Krishna in one mood and Radha in another. Till now, the Krishna, the grantor, Bhakti, and the protector, always more manifest in Nimai. But now he was about 23 or 24. The Radha mood began to possess him more and more. He had till now taught only Bhakti. Now he wanted to teach Prema, Radha's intense and intimate love of Sri Krishna as a paramount separation and in union had to be illustrated by his own example. So this is supposed to be signaling the awakening of the Radha mood in him. The change in mood was, of course, by very frequent mental upheavals and other indications, other signs. So now he began to express his desire to leave Navadvip and go to Vrindavan. There alone Krishna could be met. That means abandoning his home and heart, etc. People tried somehow. He also wanted to take sannyasa. He said, no, if I live amongst pandits and be like this, obviously, I cannot set an example. So he wanted to become a true renunciate. But then his mother and wife Vishnupriya were there. After persuasion and appeals, etc., he got their somehow he got their permission. And one night in January 1510, he ran away. Whole Navadvip was asleep. He ran away from home, crossed the river by swimming, and ran towards Katwa, a place about 16 miles away, where there lived one Keshav Bharati, with whom he had some contact earlier. Went him to be initiated into the order of sannyasins. Of course, several obstacles he had to face because the search party led by Nityananda had gone to Katwa suspecting that Nimai might have gone there. Keshav himself was clearly, in doubt as to what to do. Handsome young person brought up in affluent circumstances with an aged mother and a young wife to take sannyasa meant a life of wandering and subsistence on alms or bhiksha. He was not very keen. Nimai was shining like a gold. A huge crowd had gathered. So he was deeply absorbed in Radha's sentiment of separation from Krishna under tremendous anxiety to see the Lord. So he wanted to go to Vrindavan. Renunciation for the Vaishnava meant the breaking of this wedlock, this samsara, and getting wedded to the Lord. The Vaishnavas, in a sense, renunciation is not simply going away somewhere, giving up your house, samsara, etc., but instead marrying the Lord, becoming united with Him. Bharati first refused, but then every they tried, but nothing could prevent him. Then finally, he was able to convince Keshav Bharati and he was initiated sannyasa and given the name Krishna Chaitanya, one who evoked the consciousness of Krishna in the minds of men. It is said that as a test, Keshav Bharati said that whether he has any attraction, feeling of taste, rasa, etc., he is supposed to have, pour some sugar on his tongue. The whole thing was blown away by the wind, meaning that he was so detached. So, he wanted to, from sannyasa, he immediately wanted to go to Vrindavan. For 5 days or so, he walked without rest or food, etc. But then he lost way. Somehow he wanted to find out, he asked people. But Nityananda had sent people ahead and asked them to misdirect him, asked him to go towards Ganga and there is a road to Vrindavan. Then somehow they went here and there and finally he landed up in Shantipur at the residence of Advaita Acharya. So by the time his normal consciousness had returned, devotees had gathered around him. The news spread to Navadvip. Streams of people began to come from Navadvip to Shantipur to see this my Pandit as a sannyasi in Sri Krishna Chaitanya. So Haribol, that singing and dancing, etc., continued, and even the proud intellects of Nadia were converted by the force of renunciation he exemplified. See, he was not only, people thought that he was a Pandit, he was earning, he was doing well, and he was also behaving like a Bhakta and all that. Now they saw that no, he was intense renunciation, he had given up everything, and still his extraordinary love and devotion to God, his prema bhakti. So everybody was attracted, and then his mother also came, and then it was a very poignant scene. She was also in a festive mood, and she herself cooked for her son, and feet were arranged 10 days of his stay at Advaita Acharya's house. And then he communicated to her, he was even prepared to return to Nadia. She insisted, but the high minded lady said that she wouldn't say that, but instead of Vrindavana, you might go to Nilachal, Puri. So that it is close by, and anytime she could get news of it frequently, and could even visit Bengal occasionally. So once this agreement was arrived at, Chaitanya immediately, rose with Haribol and began to walk rapidly towards Nilachal, accompanied by a few of his close devotees, Nityananda, Mukunda, Govinda, and others. They came. So he now says with the intense intensity to meet the Purushottam of Nilachal is none other than the Krishna himself. Because Jagannath, Lord Jagannath is another form of Sri Krishna only. So he uh, reached the border between Bengal and Orissa. Then he halted at a place called Remuna, 6 miles northwest of Bareshwar. It's a very famous temple where where Madhavendra Puri, the guru of Ishwarapuri, had initiated Chaitanya into some Krishna mantra. So there, this Madhavendra Puri had done some special worship there. So we had brought a lot of sandalwood he was carrying towards Vrindavan, but the Lord said that no, it's not necessary to go that far. He can decorate the Lord in Yamuna itself. Like that, many such incidents were reported there. So he visited that place. So the he narrated, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu narrated the incidents of Madhavendra Puri to his followers. And then, he was feeling intensely, when am I going to be blessed this way? So he was passing days and nights in such ecstasy and singing and tremendous feelings of, the intense vyakulata for vision of Sri Krishna. Then we also know the very famous incident at Katak where they worship the temple of Sakshi Gopal, where the Lord, to fulfill the desires, wishes of his devotee, said that I will come with you, but you should never turn back and see. At this part, the devotee could not believe that the Lord was still following him. He looked back, and that very place, the Lord said that he won't go any further. There again, the image of Sri Krishna was installed, and even now that's worshipped as Sakshi Gopal. When he arrived at Puri, and here again he met his old teacher Sarvabhauma. He had come from Nadia, Navadvip to this place, but he was considered to be a great scholar, Advaita scholar. So, but of course, as soon as he saw this young sannyasin, he felt a deep attraction. So, the very touch of this sannyasin roused a wave of devotional fervor in everybody, and everyone started singing Haribol in ecstasy. This impressed Sarvabhauma. As I thought he was not a bhakta, but then he got a temporarily at least the sentiments got hold of him. His scholarship was like that. Then he extended Chaitanya hospitality, made arrangements for his stay, etc. But then he was trying to tell him that, about the Shukra's commentary, and he was trying to give a lucid explanation. But then he got a shocking reply from him that he was not following a single word uh, as being expounded, as it all looked like absurdity to him. Then, because the way he was explaining was not at all clear, it was a very big blow to the Pandit. So he said, for a verse from Bhagavata, for which the Pandit gave 9 meanings, Chaitanya supplied many more after showing the mistakes in the Pandit's interpretation. So then, obviously, all that completely convinced him. He declared that he was Vedamaya, full of Vedic wisdom, and Vedas were only like plaything to him. So then again, Sri Chaitanya replied that Vedas taught only prema and bhakti, and not the conclusions of soundless logic and pedantry. So naturally, Saruma also became a great follower. He himself was put into a state of great ecstasy and samadhi, etc. He was, once he, that's why, when Sarubhuma surrendered to Chaitanya and prostrated before him, when he got up, what is was not the young ascetic, in his place stood a six-armed divinity, Shadabhuja Darshan. Famous that place is there even in Puri. So, the same bow and arrow, flute in one hands, and then the mendicant's staff and bowl. And then Saruma immediately went into a trance, so to say. And then, he understood who was Chaitanya. And then obviously he fell at his feet and all that. And then that's how he was converted. So he made this Shadabhuja image and got it installed. Even now it is there. And then, after staying for some time in Puri, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he took a pilgrimage to South. He was, it took 4 full years, from April 1510 to maybe 1512. So uh, he wanted to go alone. He didn't want to take others with him. Of course, he was soft-hearted normally, but then he can be very hard also. When Krishnadasa, he took him along with this just copying and water pot. He went. So he traveled south and then he went to Kanyakumari, Rameswaram, etc. Came to Puri, traveling through central India, western India, etc. etc. Everywhere, of course, his personality attracted a large number of people. And then, everywhere it made a tremendous impression in the important centers of learning and the quarters of religious sects. He met again the theological authorities and generated them respect for his religion of pure love, centering on Radha Krishna. Only a few important, of course, lot of incidents happened place. One of which was his famous was his meeting with Ramananda Rai at Vidyanagar, as it was requested by Sarubhuma. Then it's situated to the east of modern Rajahmundry. Raman Roy was the governor of the place. Chaitanya met Governor Roy at the bathing ghat, the Holy Godavari. When they were resting, the sight of Chaitanya's spiritual lustre attracted Roy to that visiting sannyasi. He went near him and made humble obeisance. Soon they entered into conversation, visited each admiring the other for the wisdom and devotion. Recognizing the divinity of Chaitanya, Ramanandra could stay at Vidyanagar for at least 10 days, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu complied with the request. So obviously, their conversation and what they discuss is very important, and that probably will take up this and maybe the rest of it on the 3rd of April. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu. 25, 26, 27, we have 3 days of discourse in the ashrama. Advaita Vedanta, ancient and modern by our Swami Sarupi Amadu is very, very famous. And on the 26th morning, we also have a youth convention, but others can also participate, but of course, you have to register for that. And all are welcome to happen here in the ashrama auditorium. all the 3 days, evening 6 to 7. And we'll continue this a week later on the 3rd of it.